Hello, and welcome back to another episode of SYWI, or Should You Watch It? This week, I'm aware there's been a gap between uploads for the new Doctor Who episodes, and that's because I knew for a fact that these final two episodes were going to be a two-parter, because it was the end of the series, so I thought I might as well record them and review them together. Now, I know this is coming out after the Reality War has been released, but at this point, I have not seen either of them. I'm about to watch Wishworld, and in a few days' time, I will go to the cinema and watch the Reality War, which is pretty exciting. So, today, we're going to be answering the question, should you watch Doctor Who Season 15, Episode 7, Wishworld? Now, going into this episode, I have some apprehensions about what's going to happen, and that's because I've seen a promotional image. I think my theories were right, that Conrad is going to have a bigger part in the ending, because I've seen a picture of Conrad, the Rani, and Mrs. Flood. I've seen a picture of them all stood together. They seem like the big bad for this episode. They seem like the trio. But there's a small prediction that I'd like to make, and that's because on BBC iPlayer's preview for the episode, there's a little description for the episode, and it says, "Traps are sprung and old enemies unite as the Doctor and Belinda finally arrive home to find a very different world. Can the Doctor see the truth before midnight arrives?" First off, weird that they're mentioning midnight, given that they've done an episode on midnight in this season already. I wonder if that will have any relevance at all. I'm guessing not. I'm guessing that May 24th, something happens that is going to set up something to happen at midnight of May 24th. But what's really interested me is that it says, "Traps are sprung and old enemies unite." Now, if this was the case, that it just said enemies unite, then we could definitely take that to mean Conrad and the Rani. But it says old enemies unite. So I'm taking that to mean the Rani, at the very least, and someone else, because Conrad is not an old enemy. So I'm thinking maybe we see the return of the Master in this episode. I have not seen the episodes with the Rani, but some part of me feels like the Rani and the Master didn't get on. I feel like the Doctor, the Master, and the Rani are all three separate entities. They very rarely work together. Most of the time, they're in opposition to each other. So, I feel like maybe the Master will return in some way. Maybe that's what happens at midnight. I don't know. I'm very intrigued. I am very, very intrigued. But I know Conrad is in this episode. So my predictions are, they get to Earth on May 24th, everything's really different, there is some sort of dimensional leakage, because I've seen a video of a big skeleton cat, or big skeleton dog, from the trailer, that I've not seen yet, so it must be in this final two-parter, so some dimensional thing, that's what that seems like, and I think that we're going to get the return of another old enemy, and I'm thinking it's the Master, or maybe it could be Rassilon. It could be Rassilon. That'd be fun. Or maybe it's the Rani and not another Time Lord. Maybe it's Rani and... It'd be kind of boring if it was the Cybermen, because we've had the Master and the Cybermen and the Master and the Daleks recently. Not recently, but kind of recently. I reckon it'll be the Rani and a Time Lord, and if it's not the Rani and a Time Lord, it'll be some alien species that I am not too familiar with. We'll see. Right, I'm going to go watch it. I'm going to go watch Wishworld, and I will give my thoughts and predictions for the Reality War after I've seen it, but I won't review it at that point. I'll review it all together as one whole collective piece of media at the end. Right, I'll see you in a bit.
A few moments later.
Right, and I'm now back, having just watched Wishworld. What did I think? And I'm going to delve into spoilers here. So if you don't want spoilers, because I think it was a really good episode, if you don't want spoilers, click off now. Go and watch it yourself. So, I really like the premise of this episode. The entire world and setup for May the 24th just being a trap. Just to get the Doctor into that fake simulated world, that reality that they were in order for him to be used as sort of this power source to break through. As he remembers, as he comes back into reality. To that end, I actually thought that the fake world was well done. I thought that it was really unsettling that once we'd switched over to the Doctor and Belinda before the title sequence, and you saw them being romantic, and you're like, what's going on here? And then they've got a kid. What's going on here? That was really creepy for some reason. The Doctor and Belinda are not romantic companions. There are some, like Ten and Rose. It's like, yeah, okay, bit of romance. But 15 and Belinda just don't strike me as a romantic couple. So it was really unnerving watching them go about their lives as if this was normal. So I really liked that. It made the world feel unsettling, made it feel wrong. We knew there was something up immediately, but it looks normal. From an outside, non-contextual perspective, everything seems perfectly reasonable and, normal. The slip that kept happening where the cups would go through the table, that was really interesting. It was an interesting setup for, like, this world is not perfect. There are things that Conrad, even in his, his grand wisdom with his dream baby, cannot control. But why was it happening like that for everyone? Did Conrad just forget to program the tables correctly? I thought it was good. I'm just so curious. Is that going to have any impact on anything other than making the Doctor doubt? The music is so good. I have not mentioned this before, but the music in these new episodes are so good. The Rani has a really good theme, and I am just really liking the background music that's going on in these new episodes. I feel like I've not said that before, and it needs to be said. Pacing wise, it was decent. I think the Ruby and Shirley section seemed a little bit too long and drawn out, because we obviously know that Conrad is evil. We know that Shirley knows that Conrad is evil as well. We just need these two characters to remember it. So I think there could have been a quicker way to get them to that point. I like there being this sort of group of people that aren't as strongly affected by Conrad's influence, because Conrad just sees them as lesser people, basically. Therefore, in his paradigm, they aren't important enough for him to bother properly overseeing. He just puts them in a corner, and there they stay. I liked the idea of these guys being the ones to remember, to come through, the ones that can't conform within this perfect quote-unquote society that Conrad has created, are the ones that are ultimately going to be its downfall, because they can see through the disguise. As they say, I think they say, we can see the world better because we live outside of it. I liked that aspect of it. I just think there was a quicker way to get Ruby and Shirley to the point of, we are both on the same side, we both think Conrad's evil, we need to go stop him in some way. Because they hadn't done anything by the end of the episode. So I don't know how they're going to affect the plot next time, really. I love the aesthetic of lots of the scenes within this. There was a lot of 50s style clothing and housing, and I thought that worked really well for this sort of idealistic, in Conrad's eyes, society. And it gave it that unsettling, polished feel that I think it needed. Especially the bit when they were in the now Unified National Insurance Team headquarters. I think that bit was really good at sort of reinforcing that point of this society is regressed in some way from the modern 2025 society. Also, we have to acknowledge that there were massive bone creatures that didn't really do anything. They were just there. And I appreciate that there was no explanation given other than, wow, they're beautiful, aren't they? It's like they're not really here. I appreciate that they've felt no need to give any explanation for what they are. Just let us wonder. Just let us think about it. I think those and the Bone Palace, especially the inside of it, are so Geiger inspired. The inside of that Bone Palace was so Geiger inspired. It was so cool looking. That was one of my favourite bits, seeing that for the first time. All the, like, interlaced, meshy type looks. Oh, I loved it. I was so happy when I saw that. I think that inside the Bone Palace there were... The Rani referred to them as, like, Seeker hunters or something like that. I need to Google this. Basic Seeker function animals, also known as Seekers, were Gallifreyan clone classiforms. I really thought they were so cool. They were just all in this Bone Palace, and for some reason they were like linked up to this liquidy, fluid-looking stuff, and it looked so cool. And all I could think of when I saw them was Dune, the Harkonnens especially, all this like black liquid, the whites and blacks and monotones that they have going on when everything's to do with the Harkonnens. That's all I could think of. I was loving that, but just as a sort of background side character, so cool, really well designed, loved that. Also, I thought it was really pretty, in a sort of ominous, cool way, the purples and the reds, when everything was sinking into the underverse, as they called it, which I think is the antimatter realm, and I'll get onto that just now. When everything was sinking into the underverse, and even the bone creatures were sinking in, that was a little bit sad. There were some really pretty violets and purples and reds, and it was really nice, and I really like those sorts of colour schemes, they're really cool. But, speaking of the underverse, something has returned. That's right, it's Rogue, and he's on a TV. He's on the TV. He is pretty badly CGI'd into hell, but seeing Jonathan Groff again and seeing the Doctor start to remember him was so nice. I'm so glad they've not forgotten about Rogue. I hope to God he comes back. I'm clinging to it. I loved Rogue the last season. He was so good. I loved that episode. It was so good. I'm so glad he's back. He was not badly CGI'd. The background was badly CGI'd. I should stress that. They did actually get Jonathan Groff, I think. But no, the real reveal, and the old enemy they probably referred to in the BBC iPlayer description was, and this is a real big spoiler, so if you haven't seen the episode, go away. Go and watch it. Go on. The big spoiler, Omega is coming back. First of the Time Lords, banished to the antimatter realm. Omega is returning, and I think that is so cool. However, I don't think he's going to be a returning villain. I think the Rani will probably be a returning villain, like the Master is. Sort of for notable arcs within the series, I think the Rani will return, similar to how the Master did. Omega, I think, is just the big bad for next episode, for the Reality War. And I'm so excited, because when I had a book when I was younger and it had all the villains from Doctor Who in it, Omega was one of my favourites. I thought he looked so cool, his cape was so cool. The idea that he was banished and lost to a realm of antimatter, even though he was such an important Time Lord, and he went crazy with vengeance. I hope he looks cool. I hope they don't redesign him. I hope he just looks how he looked. Also, another Susan appearance very briefly on the TV. I don't think that she's going to appear in the next episode because she has very little relevance to Omega. There's no shared history between the two. They didn't appear in the same episode or anything. And if she was going to be in the next episode, then she should have properly been brought back in this episode, in the Wish World. So, predictions for next episode, the Reality War. I think that Omega is going to try and drag the Earth and then everything else in the universe into the antimatter realm and cement himself outside the antimatter realm as the only thing in the normal universe, as it were. I think that Conrad is going to get quickly abandoned by the Rani because he already seemed like he wasn't involved properly with the Rani's plan because he was asking how everything's going because he's always behind that screen, and all the Rani really needed him to do was make this Wish World. And now that he's done that and Omega is returning, does she need him anymore? I think he's going to get abandoned. I think there's going to be a trio of the Rani, Mrs. Flood, and Omega. I don't think Conrad is going to last much longer. I reckon Omega kills him, if I'm honest. And finally, I think we're going to see, because at the end of that last episode, Belinda faded away. So I'm wondering how much she's going to be in the next episode. So next episode, I think we're going to see not much of Belinda. I think we're going to see a lot of the Doctor trying to get Belinda back from the antimatter realm. I'm assuming that's where she's gone. She might not have done, because she did just phase out. The rest of the building didn't fall into the antimatter realm or anything like that. I think that this next episode is going to be the last time that we see Belinda. I think she's going to leave the Doctor after this episode. Or maybe I'll be completely wrong, and maybe the memories, if she retains them, of having that fake life are going to disturb her so much that she's like, I can't go back to normal. It'll freak me out to go back to normal. I wonder what will happen. Overall, I think it was a really good episode. I think it had elements of Silence in the Library and human nature, bringing back the John Smith character for the Doctor when he thinks he's a human. And overall, I really enjoyed it. I am excited for next episode. I will be watching the Reality War in a few days. It's going to be the same video for you, but afterwards I will give my full overview of Wishworld and the Reality War, and we will place them on the ranking. And after that, season 15 of Doctor Who will have concluded. Will we get a regeneration next episode? I think not. I think we've got Shooty for another season, which I'm perfectly happy with. But I'll see you in a little bit for Doctor Who's season 15, episode 8 finale, The Reality War. See you in a bit. Right. Hello. I am now back, having watched The Reality War and rewatched Wishworld at the cinema. I'm going to do a little bit of a review, a little bit more things to say about Wishworld, and then I'll move on to The Reality War. So, I realised when I was watching that it was actually a nice display of the Rani being evil. Like, that thing of show don't tell was something that I was a little concerned about at the end of the Interstellar Song Contest, when she's like, I am going to give the Doctor hell. That's very like, we knew you were an enemy, that's fine. But there's no reason for you to really say that out loud, even for Gary and Steve, or whatever their names were. They don't need to know that. Mrs. Flood doesn't need to know that. You're saying it for our benefit. But in Wishworld, they actually do a pretty decent job at showing that she can just be cold, evil, indifferent, because the first scene is her doing exactly that. It's her going and stealing the Wish baby, Desiderium, and kind of needlessly, not even killing a family, just using it to torment them. She turns the wife into violets, which, yeah, okay, that might have killed her. But she turns the children into ducks. Like, she has no reason to take it out on these kids, but she does. And that's it, that's the last we see of them. And she turns the husband into an owl. So they're not dead, she's just irreparably ruined their lives. And I think it was a good display of that sort of like, I do not care for the lives of these people. She refers to them a lot in the Reality War as like cattle, as pests, as things like that. They're like an inferior species. The Time Lords are on high and all that. So I think it was a good display of her being actually evil and doing evil things rather than just saying that you're going to do some evil things and telling the audience, look, trust me, I'm evil. Another thing I noticed, which was towards the end of the episode, when the Rani is trying to get the Doctor to remember his real self, she even comments on it. This isn't just exposition, Doctor. I need you to remember. Yeah, okay, I agree. But I think there was a little bit too much verbalness. Like, she starts off strong with, like, look, here's the seal of Rassilon. Look, here are these Seeker Gallifreyan clone classiforms. Do you not remember these things? She starts off good with that, and she could have continued down that way, showing him things, showing him cool set pieces, rather than just verbally reminding him of things. Them doing the dancing bit was good, I liked that bit. That was a fine bit of verbal exposition, but I think more of it should have been physical things that we can see. Again, speaking of set pieces, I think the clock that the Rani had was really cool. It was made of bone, which I only just realised. I know it was in the Bone Palace, so you'd think, alright, yeah, probably made of bone. But I only just noticed that it was actually like individual little bits of bone. Yeah, I just liked the design of the clock. It was kind of a cool set piece. It was very dramatic. It was needlessly dramatic. Ticking away to midnight. The Rani had a sonic screwdriver, which I don't know if she had previously, but I really like the design of it. I really love that purple crystal glow. I think it's cool that these other Time Lords are ending up with their own sonic screwdrivers that sort of reflect their personalities in some sort of way. I think the Rani carries a sonic screwdriver because she doesn't carry a weapon. In her mind, she doesn't need a weapon. Her brain is her weapon, her way of outsmarting people and defeating them. So she carries the sonic just as a tool of convenience. And so to that end, its design is very sleek, it's very minimal. It has a very thin, it looks more like a screwdriver than any of the Doctor's sonics. So when she's using it, it does have that really thin neck almost with the purple crystal at the end. I think it's really cool design. Final last little bit of a nitpick. There's a bit of iffy special effects when the Rani is flying around London on this weird hovering scooter thing, and I can tell that there is only one reason that was put in, and, well, two reasons. It was to set up its use in the following episode, like a Chekhov's gun, and it was so that they could have that scene at the unit headquarters where the Doctor is like, I wonder who she is, because there's no reason for the Rani to fly around like that. We get shown in the reality wall that she can teleport, so a little bit goofy, but, Chekhov's gun and all that. Those were my only additional thoughts after rewatching it at the cinema. I was perfectly happy to rewatch it. So, I'll give you my should you watch it for Wish World at the end, but I will place it on my tier list. At the top, still 9.5 out of 10. It's The Well. It ain't changing. Looks, still 8.5 out of 10, number 2 slot. And then tied for third place now, we've got The Wish World and The Story in the Engine. I'd give it an 8 out of 10. So that's where Wish World slots into my tier list. I would say as a setup for the finale, it is strong, it's good. It has that imposing feeling that you want, a good setup, interesting concepts, good aesthetics, really good. Now, moving on to the reality war, to preface this is a 68-minute episode. So immediately I knew something big's going to happen. It's enough time to resolve a cliffhanger from the previous episode, to then get Omega in, let him be evil, for Unit and the Doctor and Belinda to stop the Rani and Omega, plus a satisfying ending. You've got 70 minutes essentially to work with. See how they spend it. The pacing for the reality war is all over the place. We get 20 to 30 minutes of further setup resolving the cliffhanger conflict of the last episode, plus further setup for getting Omega into the episode. Then we have less than 10 minutes of the bad guys being stopped, of the Rani doing evil things, and Omega being there, and the conflict resolving. We have less than 10 minutes. We have about 10 minutes of back to normal time. Like, ooh, wasn't that tricky? Wasn't that weird? All the Wish World stuff. Got to reverse that. And then we've got, 20 minutes of just further shenanigans. Which, this is a spoiler, it's quite a big spoiler for this episode. So, 20 minutes of further shenanigans, basically revolving around a child called Poppy, who was in the previous episode, and I briefly mentioned how weird it was that Belinda and the Doctor have a child. Oh, that's so weird, but she's a wish baby, she doesn't really exist. But we have loads of shenanigans to do with, is Poppy real, is she not real, can we get her back? And then, in order to get her back, the Doctor has to spend some of his regeneration energy, basically killing himself and regenerating into the 16th Doctor, which I'll talk about a little bit more later. So, the first 30 minutes is actually really good. Anita, from the Christmas special Joy to the World, returns to save the Doctor from the cliffhanger at the end of the last episode. Really good use of the sort of magic time hotel doors that they have. There's a cool little reflection on her searching for the Doctor in the past year. We see Matt Smith playing electric chess, where he's trying to get information. We see the Daleks, and they're interrogating one of the earlier Doctors, and we see the 15th Doctor dancing with Rogue. And it was just a nice little reflection. I liked that. So Anita informs the Doctor that May the 24th was never reached, and it is never being reached. It just keeps repeating May the 23rd hundreds and hundreds of times in this Wish World. And he says that it's because every time they get to midnight, reality is stretching thinner. I like that idea. That repeating aspect of the world causing the boundaries between this wish reality and the universe to become blurred and become thinner and easier for something to come out of it. The Doctor then returns to Unit, and he returns everyone in there to normal by having Anita keep the time hotel door open and keeps the flow of regular time going. So everyone at unit slowly comes round and they call back in Shirley, they call back in Mel. Ruby and Shirley's sort of foray into we've got to stop Conrad from the previous episode goes nowhere. They just sort of see the world collapsing around them at the end of May 23rd, and then it resets. And then they get called back into unit. So they don't really do anything, which makes the previous episodes, oh, we need to stop Conrad, a little bit more pointless, unfortunately. Once everyone's getting everything back to normal, the Rani just comes over to gloat. She's like, you're so stupid. You could have chosen anywhere in the world to run to, and you chose somewhere not even 10 miles away. And then she sort of goes over her plan, like, why on earth are you bringing Omega back? You are insane. Oh, it's because the Time Lords are infertile, and I want to bring back the Time Lords. I want to bring back Gallifrey to its former glory. A little bit of Time Lord lore, kind of appreciated. Mel realising that the Rani was back was quite good. I enjoyed their interactions. And we get this implication that Poppy, this child of Belinda and the Doctor from the Wish world, is important in some way. Because Time Lords can't have children, they're infertile. That was what the moment, I believe, did. It scrambled their DNA, it sent them into the pocket dimension, bubble dimension, wherever Gallifrey goes. And it scrambles their DNA. We learn how the Rani escaped as well. She had to switch up her DNA a little bit. And it makes the Time Lords infertile. So there can't be any more Time Lord children. They're an evolutionary dead end, as the Rani puts it. So she's going to bring back Omega. He's like an original Time Lord. He's been unaffected by the moment. They can return the Time Lords to their former glory in the sky. Okay, first 30 minutes. I like it. This is a good setup for the rest of the episode. Let Omega be evil. Bring back Omega immediately now, and let him be evil. But it starts to fall apart. The Doctor, he skyrides over there on Rani's scooter thing. Whilst Ruby is separately, she's teleporting to stop Conrad. Long story short, the Ruby stuff is pretty good, the Doctor stuff is pretty bad. Ruby has this sort of battle of words with Conrad, and it makes him think to himself, even though he's got a gun pointed at her. But he doesn't just let her win. No, he stays fast to his sort of evil, misguided notions. But Ruby manages to steal Desiderium, the Wish Baby. And we finally learn what on earth the Rani's power was at the start of the previous episode, where she blew air out of her mouth like she was blowing a kiss and turned that woman into Violet. How was she doing that? It was actually due to the fact that it was the baby. Because suddenly Ruby can do it as well. Because she wishes Conrad to have a happy life. And then she departs and goes back to unit. The Doctor, on the other hand, immediately basically gets caught by the Rani. Because he falls off this scooter thing in the main room. And she's like, you don't have to put up this act anymore. You can bring back Omega. Don't you want to see him? And immediately he's like, yeah, actually. Why? No. You've just talked about how Omega is the literal mad god. And then you're like, no, yeah, actually, I'd like to see Omega. I want to see what he's like. You've just come over here to stop her doing exactly that. Because he doesn't know what's going to happen next. But dragging Omega in without seeing the Underverse properly is kind of unsatisfying. I would have liked to see more of that antimatter world. I think they should lean into these sort of crazy environments more. They don't show us enough of them. I want to see more of where Rogue is. I want to see more of where Omega is. But, I like the idea of Rassilon's seal becoming the tomb of Omega and it having his seal on it instead. I liked that. That wasn't a bad idea for getting him out of the Underverse. I just would have liked to see more of it. I like the reasons for bringing Omega back, given by the Rani, good ideas in practice. However, Omega is not around long enough to even know the reason he's brought back. Omega is disappointing. I was immediately disappointed with Omega. I thought it was going to be a cool reveal of, isn't he powerful? He just sort of exudes power. He exudes madness. But why? Why when they say, right, we're bringing back Omega, we're bringing back Sutek, why do they insist on bringing them back, these scary, menacing, humanoid-looking enemies that were just played by some bloke in a mask previously? Now, I know that doesn't sound very impressive, but they had impact when they were a bloke in a mask. Why do they insist on bringing them back as big CGI monsters? Unfortunately, yes, Omega has been transformed into some horrific corpse, putrid monster looking thing. It's not scary, it's not menacing, it's in full broad daylight. It's not good. It was so disappointing to see Omega like that. This was the one thing that I didn't want to happen. He doesn't even make it out of his tomb. He's big, he's like crawling out of his tomb. He's like this weird crawling looking thing, but massive, right? And he's CGI and all monstrous and putrid corpse type look. He then immediately announces that he's the god of time, that he's going to feast on Time Lords, and then he unceremoniously kills the Rani. Like, the non-Mrs. Flood version of the Rani. He just eats her. This is why her plot to bring him back was pointless. She literally doesn't even have time to explain why she's brought him back before she's killed. Mrs. Flood then escapes using the Rani's time. In my head, I think of it as a vortex manipulator, like the one Jack Harkness uses, but I know it's not. It's a bracelet on the wrist. Off she pops. Mrs. Flood manages to get out of there alive. And then the Doctor has to banish Omega back to his tomb, back to the Underverse, using the Vindicator, which they set up as having the power of 1 billion supernovas. But it just manifests as this big laser that the Doctor blasts Omega with and just literally like pushes him back into the tomb with. It's boring. It's so boring. The Doctor isn't meant to use weapons, and when he does, it's supposed to be significant. He literally just grabs it off the wall and uses it. I feel like for Omega, he should have been this ordinary looking guy. I say ordinary looking. Humanoid man in a mask. In order to be tricked rather than forcibly sent back into the Underverse. I think he needed to be deceived. He needed to be tricked. He needed to be banished yet again. Not through sheer power, but through some clever trick of the Doctor's. But no, he's just big laser beamed back into the void. Then following this, which is wrapped up in literally all of about 5 to 10 minutes, the sort of return to normal, Desiderium is brought back to unit, the wishes are stopped, and I'm fine with it. I don't mind that Desiderium is dealt with in a single wish, because he's not really a threat. He's sort of an implied threat if he was to be left unchecked, or if other people got a hold of him. So the Doctor using his wish with Desiderium to stop any more wishes and turn Desiderium basically into a normal baby is fine. I liked the sort of wrap-up of that where they give Desiderium to Ruby's mother as a foster child. That was fine. I had no problems with that. But there was far too much time spent setting Poppy up as a plot point, which almost immediately, evaporates. They put her in this chamber that I'll talk about a little bit more in a minute, the zero chamber that's supposed to separate her from the influence of the wish. If the wishes go away and the wish world ends, Poppy would be erased. But the Doctor doesn't want that. Belinda doesn't want that. So they put Belinda and her in this zero chamber where nothing, no time, no aging, no starving can happen to them. They open it up after the wishes have gone, and Poppy's still there. Hooray! Now they can travel the world together. Travel time and space. Belinda, the Doctor, and Poppy. There's a surprisingly effective scene where Poppy does start to fade. The Doctor, Belinda, Ruby, and Poppy are in the TARDIS. Belinda and the Doctor are passing Poppy's coat between them, talking about all the places that they're going to take Poppy and all the stuff that they're going to do, and then the coat disappears as they're passing it between each other. And Ruby's watching it happen, and then she looks back, and Poppy's gone. And Belinda and the Doctor have no memory of her. So all that setup to save Poppy was basically for nothing. And no one at unit can remember Poppy either, even though they all encountered her. They were all in the same room as her when they discovered that it was the Doctor's daughter. And the writers realised that they couldn't keep Poppy as the Doctor's daughter, that it would cause some logistical issues. So they needed some way to reset her as still existing, but not as half Time Lord. It's also interesting to wonder why Ruby is the one who can remember Poppy, and my theory is that She can remember these alternate timelines of the Wish World and of Poppy existing because of what happened with 73 Yards. Having her be able to remember the alternate timelines kind of makes sense. I don't know that there's a proper explanation for it, but it kind of makes sense. Conrad's ending works well. He doesn't die. The Rani doesn't kill him. Omega doesn't kill him. He just returns to a very normal life. He has never been this disillusioned with reality guy. He never becomes that. He's just a very ordinary guy who works in a very ordinary job. And that was Ruby's wish carrying over. And I think Ruby's verbal debate with him when she's trying to get Desiderium, her realization of why this Wish World is the way it is, reflects strongly on Conrad's own experiences with growing up, with having a life. I hope Mrs. Flood returns. I think Anita Dobson really suits her role. I'd like to see her return in some aspect as like a proper villain, rather than just the occasional scene, the occasional cameo. Because now we know who she is, there's no need for the cameos. You can just use her as a villain. I reckon the Rani is also going to come back too, because it feels weird to introduce a new actor as the Rani and then immediately kill her off 2 episodes later. That feels really weird. I'm sure that she'll come back. I have no idea how, because she's technically been banished into the underworld along with Omega, because he ate her. Now, Poppy fades. Only Ruby can remember her, and now Ruby's got to convince the Doctor that she was real. And so the Doctor goes out of his way to try and shift the timelines to where Poppy still exists. And he does this through expending some of his regeneration energy inside the TARDIS, aimed at the console, and somehow that fixes the timelines. Kind of. Bringing back Poppy. And I think that regeneration reason makes sense from his sort of morality side of things, but I think we could have gotten there a little easier. I think that we didn't need this other reason for Belinda to stay home, because it actually turns out when he shifted the timeline back, Poppy is now Belinda's daughter, and she's 100% human, and it turns out in this fixed quote-unquote reality that the whole reason Belinda needed to get home for 7:30 on the 24th of May was so that she could look after Poppy. Belinda already wanted to go home and stop travelling with the Doctor. That was the whole reason for her to get home on May the 24th. But there has to be some other reason given to make sure Poppy can be brought back and Belinda can stay at home. But what I will say is, thank God they didn't make Poppy a mainstay on the TARDIS, because when I was watching Belinda and the Doctor's interactions with Poppy on the TARDIS, when Ruby was watching her disappear and talking about all the places they can go and all that, I was just like, if they keep a child as a mainstay in the next season, this is going to be horrendous. Yeah, I believe that a child on these adventures as a companion would just be irritating as hell to deal with and trite, and it would just feel forced. And I'm glad that they found a way to keep Poppy in, but not on the TARDIS. We didn't see Rogue or Susan return in this episode, other than flashbacks. Now I'm a little concerned, because as I've implied, Ncuti Gatwa is no longer the Doctor. He's regenerated. So if Rogue does return in a series going forward, which I hoped he would, the chemistry between Ncuti Gatwa and Jonathan Groff is not going to be there anymore, because he's not the Doctor anymore. He won't get to see the 15th Doctor again. So I'm wondering where that emotional impact of him returning is going to come from. If it's going to feel as rewarding, or if it's going to be a little bit of a letdown if Rogue does return. So, I think that the Zero Chamber that they put Belinda and Poppy in to sort of separate them from the outside influence of the Wish ending, I think the Zero Chamber is cool as hell. And I think we should have gotten more exposure to that. And there's only one shot of them actually being inside of it. And I think that they could have done a lot more with it, but I think the concept of it is really cool. Because immediately as I was watching it, I was reminded of something. I've never played Mother 3, but there's a thing in it called the Absolutely Safe capsule, in which you are impervious to attacks, you do not starve, you do not age, time doesn't affect you, you're just stuck in it forever and you have no way out. And the Doctor even mentions this to Belinda as a genuine concern. If he fails, and if UNIT fails, there is going to be no one to let them out ever. They will live out eternity in that box. And I feel like there wasn't enough emphasis placed on that. I think it was a good way to demonstrate Belinda's commitment to Poppy, because she's like, yeah, that's true, but I'll be in there with Poppy. It's such a cool and terrifying concept just to have to trust that they'll be let out from. And I think they should have shown it more. I think there should have been more shots of them inside of it, waiting for the Doctor. I think there should have been more of a concern that they weren't going to be able to get them back out. Because again, the conflict is over in less than 10 minutes with the villains. So, in my mind, there was never a concern that Belinda couldn't be let out of it. It was only a concern, will Poppy still be inside of it after the Wish World ends? There was also, just before the Doctor sacrifices his regeneration energy, a very welcome cameo from Jodie Whittaker. Something about a time schism caused by the Doctor shifting Poppy back into the real timeline, allowing her to, for a few moments, come back and speak to the Doctor. I really appreciated her cameo. It was really short, it was only about 3 or 4 minutes. But I think getting returning Doctors back for these small cameo roles should be more frequent if it's possible. And, additionally, her writing in this brief 3 minutes she was on screen was way more refreshing and appropriate than most of her time as the Doctor. I love Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor. I think she plays the role well. There are some bits where I think the writing for the episodes is not where it should be. The writing for this episode is not where it should be either. But at least her bit was refreshing. I enjoyed it. Seeing her again after so long made me realise how much I had missed her. And I enjoyed her being back. The episode name, The Reality War, is completely invalid. There is no war happening at all. There's a bit of a fight between Unit and the Rani, which is done through these bone creatures. But other than that, there's no war. There's barely a fight between the Doctor and Omega. So I think it is not appropriately named at all. I think it was very much overstated how much impact Omega's return would have on reality and the consequences of it all. I think it was a little bit oversold. The actual regeneration itself, I will have to listen to it again, but I don't feel like it was one of the strongest goodbye speeches of the new era. I love 11s, I love 12s. 13s isn't bad. Considering we didn't get one with 14, I really wanted a powerful one for Ncuti Gatwa. And it's so unfortunate that he has regenerated, because I feel like in this season, I've enjoyed him playing the Doctor so much more. I thought episodes last season were good, but I think he was finding his footing in this season. And it's unfortunate that he's left the role so early, only 2 seasons in. I wish we could have got another season out of him. But we are now at the point where I'm going to talk about the regeneration into the 16th Doctor. And this is the mega spoiler that has probably already been spoiled by some news article for you if you've not seen the episode already. Because familiar faces return, Billie Piper is the 16th Doctor. Billie Piper, the actress who played Rose. Now, how on earth are they going to explain this? Because we've had the Doctor regenerate into familiar faces before. We've had David Tennant, most obviously. But Peter Capaldi was also a return to an old face that had appeared in a previous episode and had some significance behind why the Doctor had regenerated into someone with that face. It'll be interesting to speculate about why the Doctor regenerated into Rose out of all people. I have my own theory based on the fact that the face that the Doctor chooses is sometimes based on the last sort of moments of his life. And I think it was all to do with how much love and longing he had for having a daughter. Having, in a sense, a relationship with a human in the form of Belinda and Poppy. I think all his desire for that and all the energy that he put into making that happen again, just for it to not be the case. Belinda's married to someone else. Poppy is 100% human. All the effort that he put into that has manifested into the one human that he really thought that he could have a relationship with. I have no issues with it, but I'm sure that some people do. I do like it a little bit more when they give new or upcoming actors the chance to put their spin on it. And I feel like Rose has already put her mark on it, but I'm sure she'll do a great job being the Doctor herself. I think Billie Piper seems like a safe bet. She's familiar to pretty much all of the New Who fandom. She was a loved character. She's a pretty good actor. She's a pretty fun person in general, it seems, based on the characters that she's played in Rose and The Moment. And I think a big reason for bringing her back as the Doctor is that she's worked with Russell T Davies before. So she's probably used to his style of episodes a little bit more than someone completely new. I am cautiously excited and optimistic for what comes out of Billie Piper being the Doctor. And some people are convinced that she isn't even the Doctor, because in the credits it said, starring Ncuti Gatwa as the Doctor, starring Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor, and introducing Billie Piper. But usually it says, as the Doctor, and it didn't. So people are very speculative about, is she actually going to be the Doctor, or is this going to be some crazy lore type stuff? Overall, what did I think? Well, I think it was such a mixed bag. I think that they are really struggling to stick the landings for good setups recently. They are good at making a start on an impressive looking finale and then not being able to execute it well. There was a great setup with the Wish World episode in its entirety. Again, as I said, I love the concept. I love the aesthetics. I love the imposing threat that they are bringing Omega back. I think the start of the reality war, with Anita returning and bringing Unit back to normal, and the Rani coming to sort of semi-gloat and also extend the hand of friendship and of a deal to the Doctor, was really good. I enjoyed that bit a lot. It was a poor showing of the villains and their potential. What was the point in bringing Omega back just for him to have so little impact on anything? There were needlessly complicated timeline shenanigans just to get Poppy back and make her 100% human. I think that they could have been simplified down a little bit to the same end. The setup for the regeneration was fine. Him using his regeneration energy to shift the timelines to bring her back was fine. Him sacrificing himself, in a sense, worked. The 13th Doctor coming back for a cameo was refreshing. I really enjoyed her bit, her speaking to her future self, her finally getting her own, "Oh, you've redecorated." I don't like it. Moment was fun, I enjoyed that. 13th cameo, one of the best bits. So the regeneration was a surprise for me. I heard some people outside the cinema saying that it was rumoured, apparently. I don't really involve myself with much Doctor Who online stuff, so I don't see very much rumours. Apparently the Rani coming back had been known for ages, and that was news to me when she came back. So yeah, Billie Piper coming back into the surprise regeneration role was welcome, if a little bit confusing, and I'm wondering how they'll explain it. And now the only question is, are we waiting till Christmas for some more Doctor Who? This Christmas, 2025? Will we get a season next year? Or are we going to have to wait until 2027, as some people predict and Russell T Davies has alluded to? Whenever it picks back up, I'll start reviewing it again. In the meantime, The War Between the Land and the Sea is set to come out sometime this year. It's only 5 episodes, so I probably won't do a episode by episode review like I've been doing for Doctor Who. I'll probably do a full series breakdown and talk whenever that comes out. So, should you watch Season 15, Episode 7, Wish World of Doctor Who? In my opinion, yes. It's a great setup for a finale. It's got interesting concepts, and it's really good even on rewatch. And as I said, I would put it joint third in my ranking for this season so far. Should you watch Season 15, Episode 8 of Doctor Who, The Reality War? Only if you really want to see how the season ends and you're prepared for a not very satisfying payoff, in most regards. There really isn't that much to it, other than Anita's return, the first 30 minutes, 13's cameo, Doctor's regen. There you go. Those are the best bits of it. As far as New Who season finales go, this is very much near the bottom of the list. I've not done an official ranking. I've not thought about what could be lower yet, but it is definitely near the bottom of the list. And I think they have wasted Omega returning big time, unfortunately. So where would I put the Reality War in terms of my rankings? Well, unfortunately, it's going at the bottom, and I would give this episode a 5.5 out of 10, if I'm honest. It was very bang average. There were some very disappointing bits. There were some very good bits. 13's cameo largely boosts it up. The extended runtime was unnecessary for how much stuff they actually did. So yes, unfortunately, the Reality War ends up at the bottom of my tier list. And that concludes Doctor Who Season 15. What a good season overall. There were some highs, there were some peaks, some actual new modern Who classics. I think The Well and Lux will be considered classics in 5 years, 10 years time. I really love those 2 episodes. And the rest, barring the Reality War, were pretty good. Even the one that I had no hopes for, the Interstellar Song Contest, was so much better than I thought it would be. And it was fun, it was enjoyable. And then unfortunately, bringing up the rear, the Reality War just doesn't stick the landing that was set up for it. And so we're not leaving Doctor Who and Ncuti Gatwa's era on a sour note. His whole run has been good, I think, but we now have to turn towards the future and see what Billie Piper's era will hold as the 16th Doctor. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed a much longer video than my other 2 reviews. And I will see you whenever Doctor Who returns in the form of The War Between the Land and the Sea, a Christmas special at the end of this year, or whenever a new season comes out. I'll see you next time, and thank you very much for watching.